Oh, my, I apologize, folks. Let's take a break and get this all cleaned up. Hold on, guys. We're going to get everybody back on. We'll take a quick break and come right back. Things patched up here, guys. Much apologies. We've got Chris, we've got Josh, and I think Mark's coming back online here in a second. But meanwhile, let's just rock and roll. Guys, I'm going to switch to something a little different here, and that is this chemical mix. I read so much stuff about this. One group, and I believe it's on your side, Josh, says that there's 596 different chemicals. I think that's the number, 586, 596 different chemicals being used in the fracking process. Then the energy industry says, no, 99.5% of what goes down that hole is water and sand, and there's only actually 12 chemicals. That's a big disparity. Maybe you guys can, and I'm tell you what, this time I'm going to go first with you, Chris, please.
Sure, I appreciate it. The situation there is that, you're right, 99.5% of that mixture that we use, the solution that we use to fracture wells, is water and sand. We absolutely do need additives, though, to help do a couple things. One, we need additives to help kill the bacteria that might accumulate in the well, which would actually would present a safety risk, frankly, if it corrodes the pipe. We need additives to help change the surface tension of the water so we can get it down the well. The emulsifiers help thicken it up a little bit. The most prominent one there is guar gum. We use guar gum in ice cream and peanut butter. And then we need some, we also need some stuff to once the fracturing job is complete to get things back up through the well. We have to change it back to a water, change the surface tension back again to get it back up. And so basically that's what we use it for. I mean, we're in a situation now where the Groundwater Protection Council says that on average 12 different chemicals. 12. Okay, so you're saying there's only 12 chemicals? Well, that's the thing. We have operators in Pennsylvania right now down to 3. And trying to use even fewer through a bunch of different innovations. It's better for business that way. It's
I'm
cheaper.
Sure the gas industry is pumping ice cream and peanut butter down the ground.
Go ahead, Josh. You're at that.
Benzene, formaldehyde, glutaraldehyde, biocides that are used to, kill off bacteria. These things are not things that you want to be drinking. And when you're talking about 99.5% water and sand, that may be true, but that still leaves you with about 40,000 tons of chemicals per frac, per well. And the industry is not
tons or pounds,
required.
Tons or pounds, Josh?
Pounds.
Okay.
Pounds.
All right, I think you said tons.
How many pounds?
He said 40,000.
40,000.
So,
per well.
Pounds, yeah. This is all well documented at GasLandTheMovie.com, and this is if you go ahead and look at that, the truth behind GasLand, you can see our rebuttal to the industry smear campaign against the film. The truth is that these compounds are showing up in people's water wells. That's documented by EPA. And in DIMIC, we have a case of surfactants. You also use surfactants and detergents in the fracking fluid, and those are coming up in people's water wells. These are carcinogenic chemicals. They're neurotoxins. They cause a whole host of health problems, and the industry is pumping them into the ground in huge quantities.
All right, let me interrupt, guys. Let me interrupt so we can keep this moving.
Just address the one other little thing that you said about the number of chemicals. Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, in fact, has published a list on their website called Hydraulic Fracture Solutions. It's a PDF. You can download it, and you can see the number of chemicals there. They have a partial list. It's, I think, I don't know, maybe 100 chemicals there. C.L. Colborn at her website, tedx.org, has published a list, and she's up to about 630 different chemicals as she identified
all those things. And you talk to operators up there.
Hang on one second, Mark.
They're using a handful, and ones that have common industrial uses, and ones a lot of times you'd find on your kitchen sink.
All right, Mark, you had a question. I'm sorry.
Let's just say, Josh, are you actually saying that a typical well has 500 different chemicals in it? Is that your position?
No, we never said that at all.
Well, how many do you think? Well, how many do you think? Just briefly, Josh. How many do you think is typical?
How many do I think is typical?
Right.
There's no way to know. The industry is not required to tell you. Well, we do know from having. So C.L. Colburn's list is a compilation of chemicals and.
Josh, I watched a movie. Okay. And I didn't come away from that thinking that you thought that it was any less than 596. And I listened to that, Pat. I went back and you can move the slider and replay it.
And that, by the way, is the number that's...
This is part of the problem. The industry...
Well, you made the movie, Josh. Josh, you made the movie.
Let me explain. When you're talking about gas drilling or hydraulic fracturing, you're not talking about drilling one well. talking about drilling 100 wells.
Okay.
You're talking about drilling 10,000 wells.
Right.
When you're talking about drilling throughout New York and Pennsylvania, and in our overview section, we did say, yes, 596 different chemicals.
Right.
If the industry wants to be honest about this, they can take a look well by well and show us how many wells
Right.
there are and where in those places those different chemicals are going down
Right.
into
So,
the ground.
Josh,
And if they
Josh,
were required by law to do that, then in fact we would know the answer. But when you're looking at an overview and you're showing all the hundreds of thousands of wells across America, 596 chemicals at that point. Now there are more that they have identified. Is totally honest and
Josh.
I mean,
Josh, okay,
Yes,
we got that now. So you're saying that the movie does not claim that 596 is a typical number. I have to say I heard it very, very differently, and as I say, kept replaying that part of it to be sure I was hearing what I was hearing. But let me
Here's the quote from the movie, guys. I actually have it here. Hydraulic fracturing lasts a mix of water and chemicals 8,000 feet in the ground. The fracking itself is like a mini earthquake.
There's two people talking.
Hang on, guys. Are you, please, Josh, you're quoting from the movie?
This is Chris. I'm quoting from
Or Chris, I'm sorry. I meant to say Chris. Yeah,
the
go
line
ahead.
it says, in order to frack, you need some fracking fluid, a mix of over 596 chemicals.
That's what it says. I heard it.
Yeah.
That's the same thing I heard. Now, Ron, I have another question.
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, so we had a couple of weeks, not less than 2 weeks ago, we had a guy on the show who ran a company for many years, doesn't do it any longer, he's out of this business, but his company's business was measuring the extent of frac jobs, measuring the distance and the direction that they had traveled so the companies would know whether they'd gotten what they paid for.
Yeah, this is common, Mark. This is for fracture mapping. Happens all over the place. When Josh says when Josh says that we don't know how far down the water table is versus how high up the fractures are, that's actually not true at all. I have data here that shows in the Marcellus the separation is at what the closest the two will ever meet is 4,000 feet. So in other words, there's 4,000 feet of solid impermeable rock between the fractures and the water table. Fractures in the northeast part of the state.
Yeah, that's the part I have a hard time with.
There's totally a mischaracterization, but I'm actually interested in what Mark is saying.
So let me finish then. Let me finish. So he said that in his experience, the grand champion frac job vertically he ever saw was like 900 feet, and that was like vanishingly rare. You know, a couple hundred feet is a tremendous frac job. Number one. Number two, we've drilled about 1 million wells using hydraulic fracturing since this was instituted in roughly 1949. Actually goes back further than Chris said. Where are the problems? How has this escaped everybody's notice?
Are you actually implying
there are 1 million of them?
Are you actually implying that onshore drilling for oil and gas is not a contaminating process? I mean, this is absurd.
What I'm suggesting is that it's
absolutely
in the same.
absurd.
Now, wait a minute. Yes,
now it may be.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. You asked me what I was saying. What I'm saying is that it's an industrial activity like all others. That's what I'm saying.
Well, yes, it is an industrial activity. Industrial activity contaminates watersheds and it pollutes air. I mean, to be suggesting that this activity should be going on in areas where you have people dependent on their groundwater, where you have people living, you wouldn't let a person move into an industrial area. You wouldn't do it. You have zoning laws to prevent that from happening. Why are you letting the industrial area move into the residential area?
I live on a farm in a beautiful area, and I signed a lease. I drilled 600 of these wells. I know what it's like, and I signed a lease. Why did I do that if I thought we were contaminating anything?
Well,
very expensive farm, I might add.
I can't tell you your mindset. But what I'm telling you now is from going from place to place, my experience. Every single place the industry is going, they are contaminating the water. They are polluting the air.
I think that is one of the most unsupported statements I've ever heard in my life.
It's an amazing thing here. Again, we have 1.1 million wells that have fractured over the past 60 years.
Hang on 1 second. Guys, I think Chris is...
If the industry is willing to take me to these towns where there's this fictional situation exists where there isn't water contamination and air problems and health problems. I will go there.
Josh, Josh, can I bring something up here? A few weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, I had the city manager, I believe he was city manager, he wasn't the mayor, of Fort Worth, Texas on the show. And I believe the number was 14,000 wells they had drilled underneath the city of Fort Worth. And he claimed that this was the city manager. He claimed they had no problems. Now I know you were just down in Fort Worth. What did you find different than what he just said to me?
Well, I was in the State House in Austin interviewing.
Oh, I thought you said you were in Fort Worth. I apologize. Okay.
I was in Fort Worth and I was in Austin. I was all throughout the Barnett Shale. But I've been telling you that I went down to Austin and talked with Ron Burnham, and he said, look, there's no point in us even introducing legislation in Texas. The local government, the state government, is bought by oil and gas. So I don't know who exactly you've talked to, but it's very clear that Fort Worth, the government and the mayor's office supports gas drilling. The problem is that the citizens that are all around there are experiencing enormous problems. You have a well pad, you can drive down the road there and see one, every 30 seconds. It is an enormous amount of development. They've documented that it's something like 23% of all the air pollution in Dallas-Fort Worth is a result of the gas drilling. I'm not talking about burning natural gas. I'm talking about the actual drilling. For them to be saying that it's not contaminating, it's again the same kind of denial that the industry is in.
So, Ron,
and
it's just amazing thing, Josh, is that we are again dealing with something that's been around for such a long time, like so many wells across the entire country, generating so much oil and so much natural gas for us, and really creating jobs, supporting jobs, revenue, opportunity, the whole deal, for so many years. And yet, you know what? Before you came along 2 years ago and put the camera on this stuff, there was nothing. No one was saying anything, right? I mean, I guess what you're saying is there were all these problems. There was this pandemic stretching across the entire country.
Well, it's very well documented.
And no one said a word until you pulled your flip cam up, and then that was it. And then that apparently has shown the spotlight on this whole thing. And now we have to stop oil and gas development in America. That's essentially the proposition putting forth.
GasLand is the epitome of a situation that's been happening out west for a very long time. You don't have the same kind of media clout and people dependent on groundwater, people living very close to each other as you do on the east. It's very clear that the threat to the New York City watershed, the threat to Philadelphia's watershed, has shown a light on something that's been contaminating people out west for many, many years. And those people are finally getting a little bit of media attention, which they deserve, and because this industry has decided we're going to go ahead and move into areas that previously there hadn't been oil and gas development, and that there are large numbers of people, millions of people, dependent on water. And that has caused a huge stir. GasLand represents that situation. And I say represents that situation very accurately, but it is not because
the amazing thing is that you talked about areas that we're producing or we don't have a background producing. Pennsylvania is a good example. We've been producing oil and gas there for 150 years. New York the same way. We have 14,000 active gas wells.
Hang on. Time. Stop. Everybody stop. One person at a time, please. Chris, please. I'm sorry, Josh. I'm sorry, Chris.